You got to take off your shoes, take off your belt, and then this guy will kind of be waiting outside to come in, frisk you down, metal detect you all throughout, everything you can possibly think of, touch you wherever. And they also, when they're doing that, they're going through all your stuff, even stuff that's unopened. So I had like this present of cups and plates for my brother, and they opened it up, they wipe everything down, they look through photos, look through video, they watch whatever, they'll do anything they want, and then they put everything back together however they want, and they give you the bags. And then they say, okay, well, we're going to be nice to you, and we'll cut to the front of the line for the rest of the security checks, except passport control. Those guys still have to hassle you. So that's the airport experience. That actually took about 3 to 4 hours to get through all that. Pretty ridiculous. But that's kind of my experiences with the Gaza Freedom March. There's a lot to talk about, but one thing that I find interesting, I usually point out, and I've given a bunch of talks since I've gotten back, and that was one of the great things about the Gaza Freedom March is the main organizers, Code Pink, and all the other groups of people. They were very good at not only giving press releases and getting local coverage, but also giving talks. And before we went, after you come back, a lot of people are still giving talks. I just gave a talk at Syracuse University, which was great. And you realize that we had Israeli Arabs in the audience, we had Lebanese, we had Egyptians, people from all over the place, Saudi Arabia, and they all have heard about the Gaza Freedom March, and they talked about how, and you have to remember, this Gaza Freedom March did get publicity, just not in the United States necessarily, but it was making front page newspapers, major newspapers around the region. It was on the television channels. You know, even the Egyptian foreign minister had to go on national television one of that first week there and call. We were a national security threat, according to him, you know, he couldn't allow us to go near the border because people would be demonstrating against their proposal for building a wall that the United States is supplying so generously to Egypt, not only to be above ground but underground to block off the tunnels in some sadistic fashion. And so we couldn't go there because they said, well, people would be speaking out against it. But there were, in the end, 87 people from the Gaza Freedom March that were able to get into Gaza. And they have, there was a whole controversy with this, but the day that we were in negotiations with Suzanne Mubarak, and Suzanne Mubarak said, well, 100 people can go by the end. And most of the group said right away that no, we're not going to accept this. Everyone has a right to be able to go into Gaza, and not only 100 people. And the foreign minister said these 100 people were the genuine groups, as if the rest of us somehow weren't together or not genuine. I don't know what that meant. Yeah, rebels. Yeah, counterfeits. Yeah, miscreants. But 87 people accepted after a long ordeal, a little bit of an ordeal at the bus location to pick us up. At first, people that had been chosen kind of on a consensus based who would be representative of each contingent, get representatives from all 43 countries to go, 100 of them. And most of the groups, some groups said no, we're not sending any right off the bat. But at the bus location, people that had been chosen loaded onto the bus, and there was a demonstration of most of the groups saying, don't get on the bus, don't go, we can't accept this. There's a lot of reasons for that, actually. One of the main reasons is the Palestinian organizations were saying, no, don't accept it, don't even come. You know, all of you are needed here, you know, not just 100 of you. You know, this is an international delegation, 1,400 people. 1,400 people should go into Gaza. Well, there were good points on both sides. For about an hour there, it got a little dogmatic with both sides yelling at each other and doing all this stuff, but people started coming off the bus. There was meetings on the bus. Most of them decided, well, we're going to go off the bus. We're not going to accept this, including Hetty Epstein, the Holocaust survivor that came with us. And then Once everyone was off the bus, there was about 10 people that still were adamant on going, and for personal reasons, good reasons. And they also wanted to still represent the Gaza Freedom March and get there and bring the humanitarian aid there and bring human aid, which is the most needed aid. And 87 people decided to accept. That meant that the rest of us did not accept. So over 1,300 people said no. And they came back, the 87 people came back with a lot of stories to tell, a lot of very good, informative information that people can really learn from, including, you know...
How many were Palestinians went?
Yeah, Palestinians went.
On the 87, none were Palestinian, or most were Palestinian?
You know, there were a lot of Palestinians that went.
60 out of 87, I heard it was mostly.
Oh, I don't know exact number, but yeah, there were a lot of...
So they had family there, is that true?
That they had family there, you said?
That's what I heard.
Yeah, yes.
That is true.
Yes. And I was friends, actually, this one guy from Britain who was originally from Pakistan. He was getting married to a woman in Gaza, and her family had just been killed a year ago, and he had a personal reason for going to see her and getting into Gaza. And so basically the buses were open to whoever wanted to go. Could hop on the bus, fill up 100 seats if they wanted to. You know, if you really needed to get into Gaza or wanted to, the seats were open. Anyways, one of the main things that a lot of people were explaining when they were coming back out of Gaza, a lot of questions that were, well, what do you think of Hamas? And basically, what they thought of Hamas was basically what you thought of any other state and government. They disrupted a lot of the delegation. They were followed. They were, you know, tried to say, well, let's go play soccer. They actually said they actually had to play a soccer game. So actually, the delegation ended up being led by some Hamas officials, and instead of just being the delegation and doing the things that we were supposed to do there.
So that was good?
What's that?
That was good then?
What was good?
Them leading you in soccer and doing things with
I mean, well, no, they weren't supposed to play soccer. They didn't. They wanted to actually do visit communities, volunteer, a lot of things, and a lot of stuff did get done. But anyways, I mean, I give a lot of talks about the Gaza Freedom March. I'm about to give another talk at Siena College in New York. And one of the things I point out about the blockade being imposed on Gaza is that Israel was once imposed on a similar blockade. In 1948, Britain was blockading Israel, and the first Prime Minister of Israel, Prime Minister Ben Gurion, explained in a very one of his major speeches in 1948, explaining the brutality of the blockade being imposed on Israel. And you could basically take his speech and put it into the words of the Palestinians, and it would be very much the same. He explained how the whole economy was being destroyed. The high unemployment in Gaza, there's over half the population's unemployed. He talked about the devastation of their land and of their supplies that, you know, he couldn't figure out why was Britain blockading Israel. He also couldn't figure out, you know, this is increasing terrorism, Ben Gurion said. It's not limiting terrorism. If I had the exact quote, I could read the passage, but unfortunately I don't have that on me. But he explained that. And unfortunately, that blockade was even less of an extreme than the current blockade being imposed on Gaza. And it just seems totally hypocritical and crazy to be inflicted with the same pain that you were once inflicted upon, where once one country blockaded you before. And now for that country to then blockade even more extremely the Palestinians. That's crazy.